Hello, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to SCS webinar on food safety sustainability, and particularly food safety capacity building and some of the GFSI global markets program. I'm glad that you're all here. I got a couple of logistics questions or things to go through first. But you can see me and Frank Schurz. You can see Rosalind. We'll introduce ourselves in a couple minutes. So just again, thanks for attending this on a Friday afternoon at least Eastern time in the summer. Appreciate everybody being on, and glad to have you, and hope we can provide you with some good information. So some logistics just to get going. Everyone, all the attendees, you're in listen mode only. So and you'll stay on that. If right now, can you please confirm, just chat in that you can see the PowerPoint and see the video and hear me. So at the end of the presentation, we will have a Q&A for about 15 minutes at the end of the presentation. And if you have any questions during the course of the PowerPoint, please put it into the questions box. There's a chat, but if you put it in the questions box, that's where I'm going to be going at the end to answer those questions, bring those questions to Rosalind and myself, and we'll be answering that at the end in that. If we don't get through to all of your questions, we will be responding to you after the webinar. Make sure that those answered, get those answers to you. So don't worry about that. And the webinar is being recorded, and we are going to send that to you probably on Monday, next business day on Monday. So you'll get a recording of this webinar. If you're looking for the deck or the PowerPoint deck or in a PDF, we can send that to you on request as well. So that takes care of some of the logistics. So let's get back to the deck. And yeah, so this is a bit about me, and then I'll pass it over to Rosalind. So again, Frank Schurz, I'm Director of Strategic Accounts for SCS Global. Been in the food industry for quite some time, and particularly in the services side of the business for over 25 years, mostly in consulting and training and auditing, a variety of different hats that way. So I've seen a lot of the supply chain from the farm to the fork, from the gate to the plate, as they say, and look forward to sharing some of that experience with you today, but more so guiding Rosalind and hearing from her experiences in the supply chain. So Rosalind, go ahead.
Thanks, Frank. So I'm Rosalind Bills. I'm the Senior Director of Quality and Food Safety for 8th Avenue Food and Provisions. We're a business that produces nut butters, healthy snacks, and pasta and granola. I'm excited to be here. I have over 30 years industry experience working in a variety of roles, but most of my career has been in quality and food safety, and a big portion of that was in supplier management, and that's how I got involved in global markets. And so I'm excited to present to you today about what the global markets program is and how it helps drive you to a sustainable food safety culture.
Great, thanks, Rosalind. So we're going to shut our videos off now, but we'll bring them back up when we go to the Q&A, so that again, you can have a fuller screen for the PowerPoint, and we can concentrate on that information. So you look for our pretty faces at the end of the webinar again.
Thanks, Frank. Do I have control now?
I will do that. Just 1 second. I'll take control back. Hold on. I've got control now. Yeah, so I'm still got it. So okay, great. So again, this is thanks again for attending. Real quick, we've got this is a webinar 2 in a series of 5 webinars around food safety and different types of applications of food safety. As you can see in this slide, we've got a couple more coming up in the next month or so, and we encourage you to take a look at those in more detail. You'll get reminders, or you'll get some additional information on where to register for that. But basically, you can go to our website, go to events, and they're there with a further description of each of these. But they all touch on the integration of food safety, product claims, the whole social impact and social accountability that's emanating now in the marketplace, and in ways of integrating that with your food safety system, and in general corporate environmental responsible sustainable governance and in the food and agriculture in general, because that's definitely an up and coming element. So take a look or keep a reminder of those webinars coming up. Hope to see you on those. So a little bit, if you're new to SCS, a little bit about what we do. We are stationed and headquartered in North America, in California, but we've got auditors and different types of food safety experts, consultants, and trainers in North America and around the world in different spots. So wherever you might be or where your supply chains are, we hopefully can be in a position to help you with different services that I'll explain in a little bit. So again, over 40 years of different in the sustainability and food safety arena, where we've got different clients, holding up different 24,000 clients, auditors, consultants in all those major markets. Again, and not just food and beverage, that is one of our largest and most prestigious types of industry sectors, but we've also into forestry, green building, energy, and different types of consumer products. So well versed on standards of practice and regulations that basically all of you are interacting with on a regular basis as you're making the food or growing the food products or wherever you might be in the supply chain. In terms of the food and agriculture services that we offer specifically, we've got a separate arm that does training and consultancy and different types of advisory services that might be of interest to you. We're an accredited certification body, providing certification services across all spectrums from farm to fork, amongst all the GFSI recognized standards and some of our own standards that we have. And then also in sustainability agriculture, working with a number of different types of initiatives that are out there, including our own sustainably grown application for agriculture. So lots of different ways that perhaps we can assist you in your supply chain and understanding your supply chain or your specific sites yourself. So look forward to possibly dialoguing with you later on that. No further ado, let's get on to give this. I'm going to pass the PowerPoint over to Rosalind, and she can take over from here and talk to you about her experiences in the supply chain and specifically how the GFSI Global Markets Program can greatly assist in helping that risk mitigation process. Okay, so should be good to go, Rosalind. Should be good to go. Yeah.
All right, great. So as Frank said, we're going to talk about the Global Markets Program. This is a pathway, okay? So this is a journey towards certification against a Global Food Safety Initiative benchmarked certifying program. It's a way to get there. If you're not already certified, this is the right place for you. If you're already certified and you have some suppliers who are not, this is a great program to introduce to your suppliers. And my experience has been using this with suppliers all over the world. All right, why are we not going down here? No, I think I have control of Frank. I can still see the cursor being moved by you.
Okay, just a second. I pass that over. Let me see. You should have it.
Tell you what, Frank, why don't you go ahead and advance the slide? I'll just pause at the end of each slide.
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. A brief history on the Global Food Safety Global Markets Program. So it was implemented GFSI Global Markets Program. It was implemented in 2010, and you will get these links that we're going to show in the presentation. Those will come out to you later with the recording. And so one of the first things I always tell everybody is go to this link. You need to go and read everything you can on this link, and there's a lot of information there. But it was implemented in 2010. It does provide a pathway to certification. It's most it's done with the most strength when there's a partnership. Okay, so a partnership between a customer and a supplier. Oftentimes it's been retailers with small companies who have not yet gotten to certification yet. Sometimes those partnerships are in other forms as well. It is a voluntary program, okay? So companies opt into it because they're trying to expand their business. And so it's not required from a regulatory perspective, and it's extremely toolkit driven. And so we're gonna go through these factors today. So why use it? Okay, it's a why use global markets? Well, it's a continuous improvement approach. So you start at a self-assessment. So there's actually forms on the Global Food Safety Initiative's website, and we'll show you links to where to find that information later. And you do a self-assessment of your facility or your business, and then it determines, are you at the basic level or are you at the intermediate level? And so based on that self-assessment, you have a starting point. And so, so if you have no hazard analysis of critical control points plan in your facility, you're not at intermediate level yet. You would be at basic level. There's also then an opportunity for gap assessment by a third party. That's highly recommended. You could opt to do it yourself, but generally by the time you get through the basic level and the intermediate level, it is recommended that you have a gap assessment by a third party. That is part and parcel of most certification programs anyway. So then the next step is certification. It takes generally around 3 years from start to finish to get to certification. Some companies do it faster, but most companies will use the full 3 years to do this. So starting out, as I said, it's that self-assessment. That's determining your point of entry, okay? And if you are ready, you will go to an unaccredited assessment against a basic level, okay? If you're only ready for basic, and if you're ready for intermediate, you go to an unaccredited assessment against basic and intermediate level. So do that self-assessment first, then determine, are you at basic or intermediate? If you're at basic, then you go through and you complete the steps to get yourself up to the intermediate level, and then you do another self-assessment and determine, am I ready for intermediate level? And once you've done all of the gaps and filled in the gaps from the intermediate assessment, then you go to accreditation against a GFSI recognized scheme. And so when you think about GFSI, if you look at the guidance document for GFSI, the basic covers about 35% of what's in the guidance document. The intermediate then brings you up to the 65% level. So there is still work that has to be done after you've determined that you've completed intermediate to get yourself ready for GFSI. So in the toolkit, you will find a protocol, a checklist, and training competencies. And those are on that on the Global Markets website, on the GFSI website. So this is just an example of one part of the toolkit. It's a how to use the document for the checklist. And so one thing to note is that there's a buying company, which is oftentimes could be the assessor. And then there's the supplier that can also do their own self-assessment. And it's also important to note that this is not a standard, so this checklist does not get you any kind of certification. There's no audit. It's done, again, it's done by you and your buying partner. It doesn't give you a list of items to be assessed. You're not auditing. You're just saying, hey, am I doing this? There is no governance. There's no central record keeping. And it's a certificate that there will be no certificate issued at the end of this. So that's a really key thing is when you go through Global Markets program, you are not getting a certification, but this is a pathway to certification. So again, this is just an example of what the protocol starts to look like. This is the contents page from that. Again, you need to go to the website and dig through all of the different parts. This does take time, okay? So it's going to give you a lot of background information about how to do this. It's going to give you user guidance. It's going to give you definitions. There's information on how to score yourself. And then you go into the actual manufacturing review. And so in this case, I took the example from manufacturing. There's also one a protocol for primary producers. So if you are a produce or a vegetable or fruit packer, there's one for your business as well. This one I just happened to pull up was for food manufacturers. So here's an example from the checklist. This is actually at the basic level. Way you can tell that is it starts with a B. Okay, so you see on the left-hand side, you'll see a B, and then in section A, 1.1. So the B indicates basic. There's also more of this for the intermediate as well. And within the checklist, it gives you a series of questions, and then what does that mean? And what do you need to do? And what would an assessor do? So a lot of detail in here. There's multiple pages of this. Again, I recommend that you go to the website and download this information. The thing you notice that when you go into it, it is a download. It downloads to a zip file that allows you to then save it to your own desktop. And the next piece for you to take a look at is training competencies. This is how you're going to know if you are understanding what you need to understand. And particularly if you use a third party to assist you with this, these are the types of things that they should be delivering to you. So it's important to take a look at this so that you don't miss out on certain aspects of the Global Markets program. And it'll tell you what should you understand, what should you be able to do after each of these steps, and what should your organization be able to do after each step. And so when you think about using a third party to assist you on this, like a consultant or something along those lines, if you don't feel that you are able to meet the training competencies after going through certain sections with the consultant, your consultant is not providing you the services that they should have promised. So there's several best practices in global markets that really drive you to a food safety culture. And these are super, super important. First and foremost is this works best when there is a mentorship, okay? Particularly if you are a manufacturer who is really new to food safety certification. If you've never been in food manufacturing before, let's say you're a startup business, you have this great idea, great product, but you've never really manufactured food today, we highly recommend that you get some sort of mentor. The mentor can be a customer. So as I said in the past, oftentimes retailers have done this. So have other manufacturers. It can be a consultant. So like the services that you heard about today. There are also some NGO non-governmental programs in certain countries. I'm not aware of any in the United States today that are federal, but I do know that at the county level and sometimes the state level, there are extension agencies in certain states. Not every state has this, but they will help small entrepreneurial manufacturers that are just getting started with food safety programs. So that's one of the first and foremost things that makes global markets successful is having that mentorship. It holds you accountable to making accomplishments across the program. It also has that subject matter expertise in place as well. Another key best practice is it really does need to be top-down driven. Your CEO, president, your top leadership in your business has to take an active role. If they just say to a quality manager, here, go do this, and get us certified, and then they are not being active, it's much, much more difficult. So having that CEO, president, top leader taking an active role, being interested and engaged in the process makes for a much more successful program. And a third key piece is reassess, reassess, reassess. Constantly check yourself. Okay, and that's why that self-assessment checklist is such a great tool to use, because it allows you to say, have I accomplished this particular food safety requirement? Have I accomplished it part way? Maybe I'm part way there and I've got a program written, but I'm not very good at recording all my results all of the time. So I'm part way there, but not fully there. The next piece is commit to timelines. So as I said, this is designed to be a 3-year program. And so, you say, you know what, I'm going to take 1 year to do basic, and I'm going to get basic really locked in. I'm going to take year 2 to get through intermediate and get intermediate really locked in. And then in the 3rd year, I'm filling in those last portions, that last 35% to achieve certification. And then you get that gap assessment at the end of that 3rd year, and followed on the gap assessment is the actual certification. Companies who use third-party programs do see very high levels of success. So when you think about SCS, this is part of the offerings that they have. And so, so that is, why they're presenting on this today and asked me to be a presenter. I have seen the best success from those third-party programs. And then I would say, secondly, the best success has been when you have a really key customer partner driving you on this. And then the last piece around best practices is that all functions in your business are engaged in the improvement and implementation of the programs. So it's not just a quality food safety team project. It involves your maintenance department, it involves your engineering department, it involves your operations people, it involves your procurement team, it involves your sales team, it involves your leadership team. And when in a very small organization, there's probably a lot of people who are wearing multiple hats. I have seen in some companies that literally were 12 people in the whole company, and they were also manufacturing all the product, and they were able to implement within 3 years because all 12 people were involved. So it was hey, we said we're going to do this cross-functionally, and everybody got on board for it. So how do you know if this is working? Well, first and foremost, are you making progress against the gaps that you found in your self-assessment? If you're not making progress against those and you're not completing those tasks, you've got a problem. The next piece is, did you engage with that third party or that customer or that mentor for assistance? Are you actually meeting your expectations with how often you're going to meet with them? If you're canceling meetings often, that's going to be an indicator that this isn't working for you. Again, is your CEO, president, or your leadership team engaged and interested in the progress against it? So, if they've just pushed you off into to go do this on yourself, again, that's going to be a key indicator that's not working for you. Is it challenging your organization? This should not be easy. Okay, so I don't want anybody to think that this is just go in and fill in the blanks and check off a checklist. It will be challenging. And if it's not challenging your organization, there's probably something that's missing. And are your team members engaged and are they excited to be successful at this? So the companies that have really knocked it out of the park on this, everybody's excited to be part of this process. They asked to be on the team. So this is ultimately going to help you build a strong food safety culture. Okay, so it starts with that staff communication piece. Everybody in the company should be informed that we're going through the Global Markets Program, and that's going to then build how you communicate in the future around food safety and regulations. You're going to ensure that your staff understand their roles and their responsibilities and can tell that to anybody else coming in the door, whether that's a customer or a consultant or a regulator coming in to do an inspection. Your employees are going to know what their roles and responsibilities are. And that's an indicator of a strong food safety culture. And if you follow the Global Markets Program, they will know what their roles and responsibilities are. It's going to give you mechanisms to report on food safety issues. So when there is a problem, who do I report that to? Everybody in the business should know how to report that up and make sure it gets acted on. And it gives them empowerment to people to act on it too. Not only do they report it, but they take action against the issues. Another piece of a strong food safety culture is what is communicated. So do you have ongoing training when people come in and start they're in a new job? Do they get trained again and again and again? And are they able to repeat with that knowledge to others when asked? There's that management commitment to resourcing as well. So we know what positions we need to have. Are we filling those positions, and are we keeping them filled with competent employees? And that's a really key thing right now in this labor environment in the United States. We're seeing a real challenge with getting competent people in the door. And I know I've talked with many people in the food industry, and everybody is seeing the same challenge right now. And we all have to stay on top of it. We can't give up. And then this last piece around a strong food safety culture is your maintenance of your food safety programs and practices. And the Global Markets Program teaches you how to do that. So once you've achieved global markets and then moved on to certification, it's not just a one and done. This is an ongoing program for maintenance of everything that you do around food safety. So these are the resources, these are the links that I recommend you go to. Third party can help you navigate through this, but it is possible to do this yourself. But I am a big proponent that you partner with somebody. The other key thing around using a third party is it does have a cost associated to it. And when you have some more skin in the game, so to speak, as a company, if you're investing in food safety by hiring a consultant, it's going to help you later on have a more value of the program within your organization. So some certification programs for the global market program to consider. SQF Fundamentals is one of them. So SQF is Safe Quality Food. That is one of the actual certification program owners, and they have a GMAT program, and they've got it for both on-farm, which is the primary processing, and post-farm, which is manufacturing. BRC GS Start. So BRC is another certification program. They have both basic and intermediate for manufacturing. FSSC Global Markets Program, again, so here these are three of the 5 big certification program owners, all have a global markets program. So one of the things that's great on these is you could go through any of these global markets programs and then go to that particular certification, but you could also crisscross over and say, you know what, I did BRC, but I want to be SQF in the end, and it's an easy move because they all have the same criteria in them. And all of these are available through SCS Global Services, who also supports fully benchmarked GFSI programs as well. And Frank, I'll let you take that.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much, Jocelyn. Lots of great advice there from your practical experience. Really appreciate that. I'm sure we'll get some questions coming in. Just want to go backwards to that last slide. I had the opportunity prior to joining SCS of working on the SQF fundamentals program and in particular the one for primary production. But from that and from my knowledge of and our knowledge of the other programs, the global markets program, like the checklist that Rosalind showed you earlier, that's for free. You get that off there. What each of these programs have done is basically take that checklist and integrate it into their framework for their standards. They're a little bit different, and maybe the wording in terms of how they used it and how they augmented what was in the global markets program and the program are basically the same, but the steps, the basic and intermediate, the core of what's in there, it may be sliced and diced a little bit differently, but it's the same mechanism of a nice stepwise approach to, learning at the basic level. And as Jocelyn indicated, in really easy terms, the basic level is basically answering questions. Are you doing what you're supposed to be doing? There's hardly any documentation required out of that. Very limited, traceability for sure, maybe a few other things that are required for regulation. But it's just that, are you doing the right things? And what intermediate does through any of these programs is layer on, a few more system elements, more management aspects to it, some more documentation, again, getting you up to that 65%, and then going to the full benchmarked programs that are fully accredited, which SCS can provide. Along with any of these other intermediate steps, it takes you the rest of the way. You get the full food safety culture. But as you seen in the previous document, just go up there before, as you're implementing any of these basic or intermediate, these sorts of training, roles and responsibilities, how you act on food safety, they're built into the global markets program. They all create that culture. And then in the full program for GFSI, you're taken to task and you're measured on these sorts of things. So be prepared to say, hey, this is our culture. This is the way we do it, and it's working. You should have the confidence to be able to show that how you're doing it will be different from other sites and other companies. That's okay, because you want to do it your way. You want to do it the way it makes sense for you and your business, as long as you're getting to the outcome of a well-managed and maintained food safety program, good practices, good engagement with your employees, and be able to show that at different parts of your program. That's what food safety culture is. So don't think that it's something that come from a checklist and you just got to do it. As Rosalind said, it's not that process. So the beauty of the Global Markets Program and any of these other START programs is that they allow you to customize it to fit your company and your people and your culture, and then that way it ensures that it's maintained. It's hard to. I've seen the program on the shelf type of situation before. It doesn't work. If somebody says, here, do this, and here's the program, and it all looks nice, you get nice written programs and procedures, it doesn't work because you don't own it. You have to own that, and when you own it, it works. And when you can share that vision, share that story with the regulators, the auditors, your customers, most importantly, then you'll be moving forward and you'll have a good, safe product that hopefully will obviously meet your specifications and the quality that you're intending to do. So lots of good ways, lots of good tools there that Rosalind indicated. And like I said, this PowerPoint can be available if you want it. You've got those links to mygfsi.com to get those particular toolkits and everything else to do that. A little bit tricky with zip files and things like that. If you're having trouble, you can reach back out to us and we can help you with that as well. So in terms of SCS, I mean, again, we've got the people that can help you if you need that help, as Jocelyn or Rosalind indicated. It's important if you need it, to ask for it. And sometimes the customers, if you're a customer on this and you're driving these changes down your supply chain, if you can be available to mentor and help them, to the point maybe again that they have to own it, that will help. But we can definitely assist in that. We've got a lot of training and certification services along the way in terms of those 3 different areas and even in some of the other on-farm programs. And we can issue a certificate if it's done through us. Obviously, the Global Markets Program by itself, if it's self-assessment, there's no certificate, but we can, through those programs, issue certificates of completion of basic or intermediate type of certification, which will be nice because you can then show some progress both to your staff and to your customers. So there are some of those particular outcomes that are available, and we obviously we're competitively priced, and we look for bundle services where we can put either the food service, food safety aspects to that. If you're looking for some sustainability and social impact, we can add those to those, and there's bundled discounts available. So you should ask for those if you're already a client of SCS. So this is I'm going to leave this up. This is both my contact and Bernadette Goldstein she's on this webinar as well. This is her contact. So feel free to if you're looking for a particular service and you know what you want, you can call Bernadette. If you have questions on maybe next steps, some things are clear or different. If you don't have a question that you put into the question box here. My email is out there. I'd be glad to help you, get you going with some ideas. Like I said earlier, been in all aspects of the marketplace, so understand and could listen to what you need and provide you some quick advice to get out of the gate. So we'll leave that up. What else we got? So there's the details of our webinar again. Keep those dates in mind so we can do that. So I'm gonna leave that up and take a look at our questions in the question box. I've got some in my box here to get things going if we don't see any questions. So not seeing any questions. Let me see if I can expand that. Okay, so you got lots of questions, lots of things, lots of people chatting in on hearing me and stuff like that. I'm not seeing any questions. Still okay, you can still put into the question box if you've got some. So I've got a couple here that I got Jocelyn, you back on? Can you put your audio back on? And maybe we'll put our videos on.
I am here.
Sorry, I promised I could do that. You're there. Let me get my video going. Okay, I'm there too. So Okay, let's go. I got a couple questions. So, questions like, so for the global markets program, well, do I need a consultant? Can I do it myself? How do I, if I'm doing it myself, how do I involve leadership? What have you seen out there, Rosalind, that, you could add some advice?
So first and foremost, it is designed to be self driven, but what we see is the most, I'm sorry, I'm getting an echo here. The most success we see is when a mentor. Okay, so that's where if you just say, I'm going to go for this all by myself. I'm not going to involve a customer, or I'm not going to involve an NGO, or I'm not going to involve a third-party consultant. This can be more challenging because you've got to have somebody that you can actually bounce ideas off of, that you can check in with and say, am I doing this correctly? Somebody to challenge you to go deeper. Otherwise, the tendency is to just check the box. And so when you get a question of, okay, do I have a HACCP program? Well, have you actually done your actual hazard analysis correctly? And have you identified all of the hazards associated to your food product? Have you actually named them correctly? I'll give a really minor example that I see. Sometimes companies will say, I've identified that there's pathogens associated with this particular raw material. Well, to have a properly written HACCP plan, you need to say which pathogens. Okay, you can't just say pathogens. You have to say salmonella. You have to say Listeria monocytogenes. You have to even if you think about allergens. Okay, so if I'm going to say allergens, it used to be you could just say tree nuts. Well, now you can't say tree nuts. You have to actually name what kind of tree nuts they are. So is it Brazil nuts, or is it almonds, or is it cashews? So those are the types of things that have come with having that partner, if you will, that's working with you on the program.
So what do you think the biggest barrier is for reaching out for help? What do you see? What would be that problem with doing?
Yeah, the biggest barrier I see is suppliers don't want their customer to know that they don't know what they're doing yet. Well, the reality is the customers get it. We all had to start somewhere. Okay, so when I was a director for external supply chain quality in a previous company, nothing pleased me more than to have a supplier call me and say, hey, we're struggling and we really could use your help on this. I mean, we had teams of people that was their responsibility. And so when you think about a retailer, and a lot of retailers don't have manufacturing. What they do though is they need to make sure that their suppliers have robust programs. So they have teams of people that are assigned for that. And so the reality is food safety is not a competitive advantage. It's something that we do share routinely with each other. And so reaching out and asking for help is the best thing that you can do.
Yeah. Put your hand up. Say, I don't know what I don't know. Can you help me? Can you, lead me to the right? Now, it's not going to. Yeah.
And that happens even even in very large companies. We are all members of different organizations where we get together and we ping ideas off of each other. And food safety is always evolving, and there's nobody that has it right 100% of the time. So think about when you see recalls, you see big names attached to those recalls, and your first thought might be, why would they be having a recall? They should have really great programs. But the reality is that everybody's always evolving, and there's always room for improvement.
Yeah, and what I'm saying, if you do, hire a consultant or assessor or somebody, and even if it's whether you're paying for that or whether your customers coming in and they're helping with that, ask them lots of questions. If they're continually telling you what to do and not listening to your questions, then your spidey senses to tell you that's not going to work for you. Or a good consultant will listen to your needs, respond, make sure you hear that, clients too, because they can't own this. It's yours. They can help you, but the ownership has to lie with the site. So you mentioned about this certification taking 3 years. Is that, and why is that a good approach versus, you got a call, the salesperson says, hey, we got to supply into this particular customer, and they say we got to have a GFSI certificate. Can you got to get it in 6 months. What's the downside of that versus a 3-year process?
Okay. So it really comes down to, where are you in your food safety journey? And I'll give a personal example. So we did some qualification of new warehouses recently. And a warehousing program is much simpler than a manufacturing program is. And so in that case, we gave the warehouses 9 months to get to certification. And we have somebody who's mentoring them. And she's basically taken the global markets program and cut it down to just what warehousing needs are. And so it's step by step. It's very methodical. You have to build on your successes. And so when you think of manufacturing or primary production, those are much more complex. And so a long time ago, back in 2010 timeframe or just prior to that, there were pilots to see if you could do it faster. And the reality is that you need to get the information set in people's heads. Okay, so people have to do this over and over and over again for it to become habit. And so they found that 3 years was the best option. But there are companies that do it faster. They want to get there faster, and it's all hands on deck to get to that point. So it really came down to that 2 years was very doable, very achievable, but you could do it faster if you wanted to.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Yeah, good idea. So, here's a question. Well, I got a regulator that comes in. You know, it comes in once a year or whatever. They're checking the boxes. They're saying I'm doing it good. Why do I need certification? I'm good. I'm meeting the law. Why do I need why do I need certification?
So generally, what we find is that the regulators are only checking to make sure that you are meeting the minimum of the regulations, and certification goes beyond that. So when you think about what's in the Food Safety Modernization Act versus what do you see in any of the certifications, there's whole sections that aren't covered by the regulations. You think of food safety culture, you think around quality programs; those aren't covered by the regulators either. And so the intent is that a GFSI certification covers all of the regulations and then some. And these are the things that really are showing that strong food safety programs. So regulators, they don't need to go beyond the minimum regulations, but consumers want more. So the regulation is great, we have to meet that. The consumer wants more, and that's why then our customers, the retailers, and food service providers are saying, hey, we want to see you go to a GFSI certification so you're meeting more than just the minimum requirements.
Yeah. I think the other benefit that the certification is it provides a management system approach. So the architecture of any of those codes are built so that if you're starting from scratch, you're starting from something, it creates those programs in chunked out processes so that they all move together. Whereas a regulation sometimes is just a long laundry list of very specific requirements. It's not very user friendly. It typically isn't. A lot of duplication and things, and it adds to confusion. So knowing that these GFSI programs will meet the regulation, you can use the architecture of those programs, starting with the basic intermediate, and build on it to full certification, to house your food safety management system so you can maintain it, which is an added benefit as well to certification. So good. I'm just going to check on our question box here to see if we've got anybody else. Let's put anybody in. I'm not seeing anybody. Oh, here's one. Can an importer be, say, SQF certified if he is importing, storing, some repacking and distribution to the retail market?
Can you repeat the question? I didn't catch all of that.
Can an importer be SQF certified if he is importing, storing, doing some repacking and distribution to the retail market?
So as soon as that you do the act of repacking, that is a form of manufacturing. So I would recommend that, yes, you should seek certification for your repack operation. There's also within GFSI, not within global markets, but within GFSI, there is the warehouse level of certification. So if all you're doing is importing, storing, and then reshipping it out, there is warehousing certification option as well. And like I said earlier, that's one of the things that we've been doing. We've used a modified form of GMAP. My person who has responsibility for supplier quality, she basically took that and pared it down to the pieces that were relevant to just the warehousing, and we took that out to her. these new warehouses that we're doing business with.
Yeah. So when you did that, what percentage of the global markets was adaptable to warehousing? You have an idea, approximate maybe? Just
yeah, probably 50%. I mean, so GMPs are still important, traceability is still important, receiving and shipping, obviously, that's two things that are the main services that are being offered are very important. Pest control is very important. You do still do a risk analysis of your facility. Training aspect is still very important. I'm trying to think if I've missed anything here. Obviously, site design and cleanliness standards are still very important. So you just don't have all those manufacturing activities. Those aren't present. And while you might say in a warehouse you don't require people to wear hairnets, you do still have expectations around personal hygiene, and then things like keeping the warehouse clean. What do you do with damaged product? If product is found to be out of specification after receiving, how does it get restricted and held and disposed of, and what are the records for that? All of those things are still relative.
yeah. And then you can cascade that into any of the GFSI programs that all have a warehouse or a storage and distribution specific standard or aspect that links to that. So that's a good link up. Another thing that if you're just an importer, BRC does have a kind of a broker standard, a broker application. So if you're just, shuffling the papers, bringing it in, but you're the importer of record, you can get certified for those activities, kind of like the Foreign Supply Verification Program under FSMA. So, which is a regulation, you can get certified under BRC for that if you're just doing that activity. But as soon as you start handling it, storing it, distributing it, possible repacking, then you're definitely into a storage and distribution aspect. If you start doing anything else like cutting it or changing the nature, then you're into manufacturing. And so very, very dependent on what you do and how you do that.
I do want to comment on being the importer of record. So due to the Food Safety Modernization Act, importers of record do have the requirement now that they have to have the Foreign Supplier Verification Program. So that means that if there is a supply chain identified food safety control, okay, so that could cause somebody to get ill, that importer of record now has responsibility to make sure that those manufacturers that they are bringing those products into the United States do indeed control that hazard. And I'm very simplifying the regulatory language right here, but if you are an importer of record and you are not doing verification of the food safety programs of the manufacturers whose goods you're bringing to the United States, there will come a point where that gets caught coming through customs and your products won't be allowed in. So if you don't have that program in place, if you're not doing supply chain food safety verification, I highly, highly recommend that become a very high priority for you rather quickly. I know COVID threw a wrench into things for a while, but FDA is back online and they are becoming very, very active again. And so the honeymoon is over on that.
What was the term they were using, like regulate and something, train and then regulate?
It was educating while regulating.
Yeah, are they done with that? Is that over? It's done?
Yeah, I would say that's pretty much over. We did, one of my plants did just have an FDA inspection and they came in and they said, yeah, we're still doing some educating while regulating, but we're really moving out of that and it's now just regulating.
All right, good to know, good to know. So yeah, just looking at a couple other questions that I had written down there. You already mentioned, we were talking about, how global markets aligns with regulatory inspections. Because some regulations are still inspections rather than audits. How does global markets prepare you for the difference between those two?
So great question. So when you're following the global markets program, when you think about really when you get through the intermediate, you're probably meeting all of the same exact things that are necessary for regulatory minimums. And so it's that last third that becomes the more GFSI specific piece, but you're able to demonstrate that you've got compliance to the regulatory requirements when you get through intermediate. Basic won't get you there because basic doesn't have HACCP in it. And most regulations now have a piece around HACCP or preventive controls. So, so that when you think about how does it prepare me, keep in mind basic doesn't get you to a regulatory level, but intermediate will.
Yeah, it's a good point about the HACCP stuff, especially for the on-farm piece, which is a difficult thing. And again, small farms might even have less than 10 people maybe on there, and everybody's wearing a different hat, and you may not have the technical background for HACCP. That's when outreach to farm assessors, community involvement groups, different associations that might own, say, a generic plan that you can piggyback on, which GFSI allows you to. You don't have to write your own HACCP program for on the farm. For GFSI, you can use a HACCP-based model. So really encourage the on-farm community to look at those different models that are out there, and if you're basically growing the same types of products that the model says, it should be fairly applicable. And it basically will point to your good agricultural practices as your controls, which is where the global market program excels at outlining what you have to do at the on-farm. Post-farm, different story. You pretty much have to own that HACCP plan and those food safety plans for sure.
So just a couple things, because we've thrown out a bunch of acronyms. So for anybody who's on here that's really new to food safety, HACCP is HACCP, stands for Hazard Analysis of Critical Control Points. It's a 7-step process for food safety. GMP is Good Manufacturing Practices. I don't think we've said PCs, but if we did, that would be Preventive Controls. That comes from the Food Safety Modernization Act, which we also call FSMA, FSMA. Even GFSI, Global Food Safety Initiative. GMAP, GMAP is Global Markets Program with a small a. So we said FSVP, Foreign Supplier Verification Program, which is one of the 5 parts of FSMA. So lots of acronyms that we've been throwing around, and I want to make sure that you know the actual letters, because I do still even today see people send me a note and say, hey, I'm looking for help with the HACCP program, and they spell it HASIP, and they're missing out on some key parts.
Yeah, that whole that speaks to the language of food safety, right? All these acronyms in the language of food safety. So as you're looking to implement this, and you're kind of trying to communicate this to your employees, who, again, as we saw earlier, food safety culture, their job is to understand what they need to do. They, if I'm an auditor and I go to them and they don't know what HACCP means, it doesn't mean they're not doing a bad job. Maybe the job doesn't need to know what HACCP is, or what SQF stands for, or whatever it might be. And so for the implementation piece of this, is the champion of this, definitely needs to know what they mean, because they have to know how they're applied. But it doesn't necessarily have to cascade down to all the employees. It can be helpful, but then that's up to you to figure out what they need to know and what they don't need to know. In terms of doing the job, looking for food safety risks, controlling control measures, all those sorts of things. So food safety is a language in itself, and yes, we have TMA, too many acronyms. So thanks for bringing it up, because sometimes we forget that, and I should have had my trainer hat on and recognize that you have to spell those things out, because they're important for the understanding and what to look for, and what help you need to ask for, right? Put your hand up and say, okay, I don't know what HACCP is. Okay, well, you got to own it. So, there's lots of training. We've got lots of training on HACCP. There's lots of training out there, because that's a pivotal piece for your food safety management system, is understanding how to do that. The 7 principles of HACCP, which you mentioned, Rosalind, plus the other 5. So Codex Alimentarius, which is an international guideline, talks about 12 steps. And if you do that in a stepwise process, your outcome should be a good food safety plan that makes sense to you, makes sense to the site, and is specific to the site. So just looking at our time, we've got a couple, 1 or 2 minutes left. Any final words of wisdom, Rosalind, that you want to pass on to our distinguished guests? that we have online?
I would just say this is a journey. You don't get this done overnight. I can't stress enough engaging with your leadership and having them be part of the process. And one of the things that we see in facilities, the most successful plants have a really robust food safety team. It's made up of the quality manager who might lead it, but then you've got the plant manager, maintenance manager, sanitation manager, HR is on that team as well. You might have, if you have an environmental health and safety person, that's a good person to have on the team. So it has to be cross-functional, and this does take time.
And if you're a small producer, farmer, mid-sized enterprises, you might be wearing many of those hats together. That's just the luxury, the nature of your business. Hopefully, you get this in place, you get more business, you can grow if that's what you want to do. So, good place to start, and some good programs there that hopefully resonate with you all. So, Rosalind, thanks so much for being here and sharing this with our participants. I want to thank you for that. Those of you, again, for the there's our contact information, and really encourage you to reach out to us. Like I said, we'll be getting a copy of this recording in the next couple of days. So thanks again for attending this SCS webinar, and I look forward to hearing from you in the future. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.